Hello, welcome to another video in our series on building your own website and creating a business out of that skill. I want to believe it's been fun so far and you are having a rich learning experience. Now, in today's video, in the last video, we were able to build this page. This is what our website looks like right now. And anybody visiting our website will see this. So in this video, I want to go a little bit deeper. I want to learn a little more of the concepts of website design and the concept of using your Elementor. And then we are going to work on this website a little more and try to clean this up a little bit better than what it is. And in the next video, we'll continue from that point. So in today's video, we are going to learn the concept of margin and padding. And we are going to also learn the concept of negative margin, negative padding. So when we talk of padding and margin, what are we talking about? Remember, in the last video, we talked about sections and we said if you had a website, if you have a website, usually your website would come in the format of you have your header section, your footer section, and things like that. So you could have something like your website like this, and then you have section up here, a section down here, and then you have the body section where you can have your content. Now, when you now think of your website in this regard, you can have your sections. Remember, your sections are usually stacked on top of each other. So you have one section on top like this, and then you have another section below that, and then you have another section below that. And then your columns are stacked beside each other. So you can have a section like this, and inside that section you can have your columns. So here are columns stacked beside each other, and then you have a column inside a section, and you have your sections stacked on top of each other. Now, when you are working with all these sections and all these columns, there is sometimes a need for you to create space around all these sections and all these columns. And for beginners, a lot of the time, they have a lot of problem trying to wrap their head around the concept of margin. We have something called margin and padding. So they have, and then you have padding. We are just going to quickly look at these two concepts here now, and then later we'll look at negative margin, negative padding. Now, when we talk about margin, a margin is space outside of a section or a column. So if we talk about a margin, it means you are talking about the space between this section in relation to other things outside of this section. That's what we mean by margin. So if we were to increase the margin of this section, it means that this part of this second section, let's assume this is section 1, this is section 2, this is section 3, it means that this section, if we increase the padding, if we increase the margin of section 1, it means that section 2 will be pushed down, and then there will be a space around this section 1. So margin has to do with space outside of a section, and then padding has to do with spaces inside of a section or a column. So if we were to add padding to this particular section, then the padding will affect the content inside the section, while the margin will affect content outside of the section. Let's try and see that displayed in our Elementor. So I'm going to go to pages, and then the page we are working on is the home page. I'm going to edit that page with Elementor, and then I'm going to try and see how that works out. So we are going to work on padding, margin, and then we are going to do a little bit on negative padding and negative margin. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to remove this form for now. I'm just going to take out the form. I right click and I delete, and then the form is gone. And then I'm going to now try and work on padding and margin so that you see. So in order to do that, I'm going to add a new section. So I'm just going to do here, and I'm going to add a new section, and I'm going to do the section, and you can see I have one section on top and one section under. I'm going to click on the 6 dots here, and I'm going to edit this section so that we can have a distinction between the two sections. So I'm going to go to the style, and I'm going to go to the background, and this time around I'm going to change the background color, and let's use a gradient background this time around. Or before we do that, let's change the height of this background so that it's visible what we do. So I'm just going to say let's pick a minimum height, and let's just use 200 or thereabouts, so that we will be able to see clearly what we are doing. So I'm just going to do a minimum height of 200, and then we're going to go to the style, and then we are going to go to the background, and this time around I'm going to use a gradient background so that you see how gradients work. I'm going to do a background type, and I'm going to do gradient. And when you do a gradient background, it means you want to mix two different colors. For the first color, which is the first color here, I'm going to pick, let's pick a blue. Let's just pick a blue. I'm going to pick a blue. That's the first color. And then I'm going to change the location. The location means the angle that the color will show in. How much you can see as I move this, the color seems to push down the second color. So if you look well, if I move to about 100, you see that it pushes down the whole of the second color, and I can't see the second color again. If I move it up, you see the second color just softly begins to show. So let me pick the second color, and then I just do, let me pick a black for the second color, and then I have my second color, and then the location of the second color is 100. If I push it down, you can see I have that. So I'm going to leave it at 100, and then I can change the type. Right now I have a linear. I can decide to make it radial, and if I make it radial, you will see that the color kind of works in a circle. All right. If I do location, you can see the color kind of work in a circle. So I'm just going to go back and do linear. So I have the color coming from up to down, and then I can have the opacity and all of that. You'll get deeper into all of this later. So I have a background color. Now, let's look at the concept of padding and margin. We are going to start with margin. Now, if I go to the style, so if I want to add margin, I go to advanced, and once I come to advanced, you will see margin, and then you would see padding. Now in the margin, you have the margin working in all directions. You can have margin going top, so we have this area is the top, then you have the right, which is like a clock. Clock goes in this direction. So you have the top, you have the right, you have the bottom, and then you have the left. So it goes top, right, bottom, left. And then when you come here, you would see top, right, and then you have bottom and you have left. Now, if you change the margin here, just see what happens. See the space that will be created between the first section up here where we have the red, and the second section here where we have the blue. If I change the margin, let me just do margin, and I change the margin, you can see there is now a space between the content on top and the content below. That's how margins work. And then when you do this, what happens is that that margin is automatically applied to the top and the bottom. You can see the margin is applied automatically to the top and to the bottom because the margins are linked. If you want to apply the margin to the top only without applying the margin to the bottom, what you want to do is that you want to unlink the margin here. And once you unlink the margin, each one will work independently. So I can decide to give the top a margin of 30, and you can see that there is now a space between the outside of this frame and then the outside of this frame. So margins give space outside of a container. In the case of padding, padding gives space inside a container. So if I were to come into this first box and I do the edit section here and I go to advanced and I want to increase the margin, no, the padding now. I want to work on padding now. Padding increases or gives space inside the container. Now watch what happens. If I were to increase the margin, the padding, you would see that within the container, there is a space. Within the container, you can see between the content here and the container that fits it, a space is being given, and that space is given all round. So the space is being applied to the top. You can see there's now a space on top. There's a space below, there's a space to the right, and there's a space to the left. And that space will be applied all around because this is linked. So whatever you do to one, what gets applied to the top, to the bottom, to the left, and to the right automatically. And if I were to publish this and I look at the website itself, you would see that what people see when they come to your website automatically changes. So if I were to come here now and I do a refresh, you would see that there is now a space above, to the right, to the bottom, and to the left. And if you look at this section where we added the blue, you can see that there is a margin space as well. So that's how margins and paddings work. And if you look in here, you will see that we have that margin applied all around. If you link the margin here, then it means that you can now apply the padding to individual element, to the individual section. So you can do, I say, okay, I want the padding of the top to be 500. And then, okay, I just did that of 5,000, but let me do 500. And when you do the margin of the top to be 500, the margin of the bottom, right and left, would stay the same. So if I do margin of top to be 50, you can see the margin on top is 50, the margin below still remains at 164. What if I do the margin of the right to be maybe 100? What happens? Okay, if I do the margin of 100 to be the padding, the padding of 100 of the right to be 1000, you can see that there is now a big space on the right. If I put it at 100, you can see the space reduces. If I put it at 10, the space reduces further. So that's the concept of margins and paddings. Padding applies within, inside, while margins show on the outside. And then you can apply your paddings and your margins to almost all elements in your Elementor design. For instance, if I come to this button, I can apply a margin on this button. I just edit the button, and then when I go to advanced, I can apply margin. So let me just unlink it and let me apply the margin to the top so that it is visible. So I can apply a margin to the top of that button, and you would see that there is now a space outside of that button. I can also apply a padding to the button, and that space will be inside. So let me just do a padding and let me just increase the padding so you can see, and you would see that that space will be applied within that element. So you can now see that there's a padding inside that element. So Paddings and margins are things that you can apply all around your design, and as you apply them in your design, it helps you enhance your designs. So we are going to stop here for this video, and then in the next video we'll pick it up from there and we continue and we start using our knowledge of margins and paddings. Oh, before I go, let's look at margins and paddings in the negative concepts. So just as you can apply margin and padding and you can have space around, you can also have negative margins and padding. And negative margins and padding will just shift your padding in the opposite direction. So if you do negative margins and padding, and this usually works well when you are using things like pictures. So let's just quickly do a picture. I'm just going to put in another section here, and I'm going to do a section, and then I'm going to go to the main Elementor elements, and I'm going to use an inner section now. So I'm going to drag an inner section into this section, and that gives me two columns. Now for the two columns, the next thing I want to do is I want to drag in an image. So I'm going to drag in an image. I don't have any image uploaded yet, so I'm just going to click here, and then I'm going to add files to my media. Let me go to my Elementor and then just pick an image and upload an image. I wait for that image to upload. Let me upload another one. So I have two. And then I just wait for that image to be uploaded. And once the image is uploaded, I can use that image in my design. So for any image you want to use an image, you want to use an audio file, you want to use a video, you can always just upload that content to your website. And once it is uploaded to your website, you can use that that uploaded material in your design. So we still have this uploading. I think it's a bit heavy. Okay, so I have this uploaded now, and once it is there, I can just decide to add that to my design. So I just click on it and then I insert media, and once I do that, that should be inserted in my page. Let's do that again. Okay, so that has been inserted in my design. So I have this design now inserted, and then I can decide to change the size. You can see I can decide to just manipulate the size from here by doing that. And as I manipulate the design, the size, you see it showing there. Then I can decide to also add styles. Okay, I can decide to increase the width, I can decide to increase the height. Okay, so all of these things are things that I can do with my design, but I'm just going to go back. Image added, let me just go back and go to the images and just add it again. Taking this image and inserting the media. Okay, so I'm just going to use this image like that, and then I'm going to go to this section, and I'm going to, let me just go back here. I'm going to bring in a bullet list. Let me see, a list. So all these are things you can use. You can use a heading, you can use a text editor, you can use an inner section image, you can bring in a video, you can bring in a button, just drag and drop. You can bring in posts, you can bring in a form, you can bring in animated headlines, you can bring in price lists, you can bring in your call to action. All these are elements that you can easily just bring into your design, and they are all there. So you can bring in all of these. You can bring in an icon list and just drag and drop, and once you bring in that, you would see that you have that. So here you can have your headlines and just have your benefits, maybe as much as 5 million per year. It's your own website design agency. So I'm just going to duplicate this. I'm just going to copy and just make that into like kind of benefit list, just to be fast. We are just doing demos and demos and demos, and then I'm just going to do that again. So you have that, and then for negative margins and padding, so I'm just going to go back to this section where I have this image, and I'm going to go to advanced. So just like we added margins and paddings, you can as well add margins and paddings to this particular design. I'm going to unlink this, and I'm going to try to add a padding to the right so that you see. So if I add a padding to the right, you see that on the right hand side, there is now a space between this benefit and the image. And then I can as well decrease that, and you would see that the padding will just change. And you see now I'm using a negative padding because now I'm in the negative, and you would see that this design, this picture is now entering into this other side. So there are times when you need to use negative padding just to shift things into some other areas of your design. So if I use a negative padding here also, you would see that this picture will just move into that area on top. And with this, you can begin to change the concept and the way your site looks. So I'm going to publish this now, and we are going to stop here for this video. And then in the next video, we'll continue and we'll begin to build on top of what we have done now, and we'll expand the scope of what we are doing, and so that we can deliver beautiful opt-in pages. And then from there, we can go ahead and begin to design more complex websites that you can now offer to your clients, you can use for yourself, and you can build around the business plan that you have created, and you can do something for yourself before the end of the year. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.